Thank you so much for joining us for our panel, Filmmakers and Nonprofits in Powerful Partnership.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So welcome to Filmmakers and Nonprofits. Now I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out. You're obviously very passionate individuals, and you're passionate about telling stories, so thank you. I want to thank the panelists up here too as well that I have alongside me. A couple great philanthropic minds, as well as some great filmmakers too up here that are really looking to do some real world impact here. So the individuals that I share this dais with, we're here for a very special opportunity. We made a film, a superhero film, that reimagined the founding story of the Friends of Jack called The Hero in Us. And we're gonna use that narrative to show you how you too can make your own film, your own superhero film if you want to as well. So let's start with a quick question. Quick show of hands, who here is a filmmaker? All right, let's clap it up, come on. Right on. How many of you are nonprofit leaders or affiliated with a nonprofit in some capacity? All right, there we go. And how many of you, the Marvel and next big thing was going on at the same time? So how many of you were here because that line was too long? I know there's one in the audience, yeah. All right, so how many of you filmmakers, or nonprofits, I should say this. How many of you have thought about your nonprofit story as kind of a movie or a TV show? Something that's just very entertaining, but a great narrative, really moves minds. Well, we did. We thought it was worthy of that, so we actually did. So I want to start with our panelists here. I'm going to start with Brody.
How's everyone going? Both kind of fun's awesome this year. My name is Brody Pazol. I was the sound editor on this project. I'm an audio engineer. I worked in the modality of live sound, music broadcast, and now film. So this is my first film project, and I was really happy to be a part of it. And I hope you enjoy what we have for you guys. Well.
Noah.
I'm next. My name is Arnold. I was the director of photography on this, and I'll give you guys a little bit of background and how I got into the nonprofit world. I started as a filmmaker from Emerson and went and worked at Paramount under Lorenzo di Bonaventura. Played that West Coast game for a minute, and decided to come to the East Coast or back home because there's a girl I was particularly fond of, wearing white pants in the back. And I became associate producer of Hasbro, making Nerf commercials and doing all of the commercial side of things. COVID hit and I wanted to get back behind the camera, and the nonprofit world is full of stories that aren't told, full of really passionate people and really passionate organizations. So started back behind the camera making nonprofit videos for local organizations I could find around Central Madison. We've grown that since, and it's led me to a lot of really cool places, and I'm really excited to be here.
Well,
I'm Jill Fearons. I'm actually the founder and president of the Friends of Jack. Jack is my son, and my most important job is I am a mom. I'm 6, and I love my jobs.
see?
My name is Cohenno. I'm the executive director of the Friends of Jack Foundation. I had been in this role since 2021. However, Joe and I have launched the Friends of Jack together in 2019. I've been a part of it since the inception. Had a small role with a nonprofit early in my career. I was happy to get back to this again a few years ago. And on this project, working with lots of the team, my background's in media relations, both the healthcare and professional sports. So I sat behind the person on a camera many times, and have seen how it is to put together many times from that perspective. And so I think working with Hal, it's being bricklers at the table, but also the perspective of the nonprofit.
And I'm Alex Stulac. Thanks, Pete. Sorry to cut you off there. I am, principal, owner, and marketing strategist at Stulac Marketing. We're a creative marketing agency working on story-driven growth marketing campaigns. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of influential entities from Mass General Hospital, Sennheiser, Bose, and this entity sitting right next to me, the Friends of Jack Foundation. We've worked on projects for Sennheiser in terms of helping emerging artists, and they're artists that they all manage their relationship team on content initiatives, helping grow reach and stuff like that. We've helped with galas and events, narrative approaches right up into it. And then we're also working on film. I went to the University of Massachusetts where I studied film and really wanted to bring that narrative approach to marketing. So, all right. When we go back one slide, 2 slides, I'm sorry. So we're going to show you a quick trailer for the film that we made.
Many people have heard my sad story, how he fought Chiari for the first time when he was only 2. But the wounds Chiari inflicted were so devastating, the doctors had to install a shunt jet. That little tube in Jack's head is this lifeline.
Puppy, where did you learn to play piano?
Your story inspired so many families. It can be again too.
Jack, that's you, super cat.
Come on, you don't get superheroes are strong. You better start Jack.
Jill, you need to see this. Oh my God, Dad, he's not breathing.
Thank you very much. That'll the Hero and Us will be screening tomorrow in this room at 11 a.m. if you're interested in seeing how that the whole film. Let's start a question for Pete in the pre-production process and how everything kind of got going. Pete, can you walk us through what the mission is from an executive director standpoint, like your perspective, what the Friends of Jack's mission is, and why it made sense to make this movie?
Yeah, sure. So real quick, Friends of Jack, our main focus is providing funding to child life specialists. But what we're best known for the region is our Cake Bear program, superhero program. We give out cakes and masks to kids, and I think Jill could probably talk a little bit more about that program and why she went with it, why we set.
A major portion of when Jack was in the hospital, he had a lot of procedures done, and I used to put a superhero mask on Jack as he would go into these procedures. And when he came out, it really made an impact on his recovery after that procedure. And I realized he genuinely believed in that moment he was powerful and could get through it. And I had the ability to see him being able to wear the mask and being able to not wear the mask because some was so urgent I couldn't get it on. And I knew when we were lucky enough to go home with Jack that I needed to implement a program so that every child felt like a superhero in a scary situation, no matter what that may look like, because it's not just in the medical field we work with police, rescue, and everywhere that a child was at risk. So that is a major part of what we do. And then he touched upon a child life specialist a little bit. And if you're not familiar with that, I like to say you're lucky because you haven't needed that, but they are the support in the hospital from the families and the physicians. It's not really a position that's covered financially in pediatrics, so we like to come in and be able to provide those for the kids in the hospitals.
Yeah, so we've been around since 2019, and a lot of the original folks who supported us. We've had a lot of new people come on since then, and really support the organization. We want to remind them how we got started. And so our annual celebration was coming up last year in September, and early 2024, I reached out to Alex. We had worked together on other projects, and just told him I needed about a 5-minute, your normal non-profit, kind of quick highlight film, I guess, that you see at every, gala. Nothing too fancy, nothing with bells and whistles, just your basic thing. And a couple $1,000 budget. And the idea that you just started to introduce different things as we talked about Jack's story, what we wanted to convey to people, and the story we wanted to tell. Alex started to come up with ideas and make information, as you saw the live action, and it really just became something that we never imagined it would be. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been studying a lot of and doing a lot of research on brand funding films as a marketing opportunity for brands. And I thought, hey, why can't this model with an activation and ending up talking on panel be useful for nonprofits? I mean, the tax incentives alone make it more viable for somebody or a corporation or an individual to invest in a film, other than saying, hey, here's a sunk cost. Can we go to the next slide, please? The mutual benefits map. One more. Back. Thank you. So anyway, we live in a mission-driven age. I mean, and that's pretty given. Storytelling is essential right across the medium to drive audiences and to get people engaged and inspired to take action. Something that nonprofits really need to as well, especially with such high turnover donors year over year. So I just want to touch on a few quick points real quick on what makes it viable for these two groups to really come together. I think a few things that we discovered that filmmakers offer to nonprofits is creative problem solving. Noah and I can attest to the amount of the nonprofits we worked for in the past, and yeah, there's a lot of great storytelling that goes, but there's also that risk aversion too as well. We don't have all the money in the world, but with a film, you can think creatively about how you tell your story to engage and entertain, as opposed to kind of play on the more emotional aspect of it. And I think that's one thing that Pete and I really resonated with too as well, is how do we take Jack's story and make it positive? Another thing is professional quality and credibility.
I was just going to say, I'd like add to that. One thing you never want to do is expose the kids that we help. Particularly, we want to expose Jack's story. Honestly, the kids that we come across that dealing the tragedy or the midst of some health crisis, that's what brings us together, and that's what we help them with. But we don't want that to be the story that we tell. You want it to look past the tragedy and what those kids, what we pass that, what their lives are afterwards. And Todd and Alex, that was what came up with the idea of focusing on Jack the superhero. His favorite superhero was Iron Man. And I think, the reason he relates to Iron Man is he has a shunt in the back of his head that drains the excess brain fluid that he has some hydrous outlets that he got from his office with his surgery. And so, like Iron Man passed the ore, keeps it alive. Jack kind of saw that, as a parallel. And then as we got deeper, how would they turn this into a positive story? How do they dwell upon Jack's sickness? I think the idea to focus on the silver lining of what came from it, the superpower that he developed, which was his ability to play the piano. It was savant syndrome, which Pablo hadn't felt. Never had tested piano before in his life. Goes into the surgery, ends up in a coma, and with some brain memories that happen as well. He's in a coma. He develops her ability to sit down by hearing their piano, which was an incredible thing. So we wanted to focus more on that. And you had to tell the story. He's not in the hospital. It's all a big piece of the story, but the focus was the good that came out of it.
Yeah. And so many times with nonprofits and Pete, we'd stuck with that 5-minute impact story. Yeah, it would have resonated at the gala, but then it goes on YouTube, and that's really where it ends, right? Maybe you get a few thousand views on YouTube, but that's really wasn't going to help the organization long term. And we were thinking bigger. We were thinking Comic-Con bigger. or at least I was at the time. So this filmmaking model, if for anybody that's familiar with the brand filmmaking model, with how brands can tie in, Amelia Perez looked that up too as well. They just obviously got nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards, but it unlocks culture, bringing in new, interesting parties that may be aligned with the mission that may have not known it otherwise. You're introduced to film festivals, wider exposure, press opportunities too as well, social media exposure, and new sources of funding. You were, before as a nonprofit, you had subject matter grants, you had state grants for your mission. Now you have film grants to fund this. You have event-based grants too as well that you can utilize too, and you can talk to your state rep. So for the nonprofit leaders out there, some things that I think really are that nonprofits offer to filmmakers is it built-in audiences. We talk about this franchise model here at Comic-Con, right? Why are they buying so many franchise IPs? It's because they have a built-in audience. Nonprofits have that. They have access to funding, and bigger, but more importantly for us is marketing. Access to resources, help push us out there, help get our work out there too as well. There's an incentive built into that. So anybody want to touch on any of those other benefits real quick? Cool. Just for the sake of time, we're going to move forward a little quickly. Can you go to the Ask Rich? So I came across, actually, back to that slide real quick. Thank you. So this one I came across in a blog article the other day that I thought was just a really interesting point to point across. And this is like that emotional incentive to why both parties would benefit. And it's the aspirational web, right? And that represents a higher order of emotional needs that drive motivation, fulfillment, and long-term success. And as you'll see, the 4 key emotional needs at this level, a nonprofit film checks all those boxes for everybody involved. The potential, the need to grow, improve, and reach aspirations. A nonprofit has that, a filmmaker has that, or requires that. Success, the need to accomplish meaningful goals. Well, that's why you do nonprofit work, and that's why we do films. Recognition and purpose. So just something really interesting I thought resonated with this project. You can go to the slide. Thank you. So, Jill, before we go into the funding aspects, what came up for you personally and professionally, as somebody who lived this story, but also somebody who's running an organization, when this idea was pitched to you? When Pete and I came to you with this idea, you can be honest. Yeah.
So if I am going to be honest, my response was absolutely no. You were asking me to go back to one of the hardest days in my entire life, and not just me, but my entire family and Jack. And I knew as a nonprofit and what we had started, I see every single day the kids that we help now. And it's set aside from the story of Jack. So I wasn't really ready to go back there. I didn't really want to go back there. But your team is incredible. I do think it's extremely important when you move forward with a project like this that you have this incredible team that supported me and understood and, was able to balance with me. And sometimes, as the founder and president of the nonprofit, it's difficult for me to separate from being a mom to running the nonprofit. And first thing you want to do is protect your family. And I thought I was going to expose them and bring them back to a scary time for us. And at times I was scared doing it and was sad. But at the end of it, it isn't about me anymore. It's about everybody that we help. And that movie gave people the ability that really didn't know what the Friends of Jack was or how it began, an insight to why it is what it is today. And I think that is extremely important for a nonprofit to go back to remember where you began and why you're there and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for always to tell your story. I know, as we'll touch on later on, and if you do work with nonprofits, there is a certain cadence and there's a certain way of working with them. You're touching on some pretty traumatic events. That's not going to be easy, and it requires a lot of patience. But we're filmmakers, we know that. Telling hard stories is what we get out of bed for. So just up there real quick, those are some of the interesting ways you can fund your films too as well that we kind of glossed over a little bit. Looking for corporate social responsibility employees. I think that's a really interesting one if you're really going to target corporations to kind of come in. Seed and Spark, really great one. An individual in this room turned me on to this at an info list event. I see you over there. back up in Hollywood. Thank you for that, Joe. Crowdfunding Fridays, fan base press definitely helps push you out. And all the different grants that are available too as well, as you'll see there.
And Alex, what I do want to say is, even with all my pushback, we do a lot of volunteering within the community with kids. I think it's extremely important that kids have an opportunity to start volunteering at a young age and being part of something. So taking kids in as volunteers for us is really important to me. Well, I am speaking at a lot of different schools come the fall because the movie made it to Comic-Con and everyone just thinks that's super cool. So we are now able to take this opportunity and get some new donors and introduce kids on how to give back in the community. And I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. The reach is extending, and I got a lot of really interesting eyes on it too. Can we go to the next slide? So this is another crowdfunding example. Coast, if any of you are in Los Angeles area, they're down in Laguna. They're a film and music festival, but really based around, they're doing a lot of films with Rivian, Patagonia, all that, but they're all mission driven. Definitely recommend checking them out. But that's how they incentivize people to fundraise for $50,000 for post-production for their latest snowboarding film. So assembling our team, once Pete and I had an idea and Jill gratefully approved, it was time to assemble the team. First person I brought in was Caitlin Guzman. Caitlin unfortunately couldn't make it due to a family conflict, and we want to make sure that she is recognized here for all the great work she did. You see the character animations right there of us, and all the work in the film that you will see hopefully tomorrow is Caitlin's pride and joy. So if you want to reach out to her, she is very accessible and very talented as well. But we funded this on a shoestring budget. And I want to touch on one really interesting way that Pete got more of their network to fund this. At the gala, we were looking to, kind of raise more money and use this when we premiered it. And you did something really unique. Can you talk to them about it and then how you sold it to the audience?
Yeah. I mean, looking back, it doesn't seem too unique. We can really think it out. What we ended up doing was we sold executive producer credits to donors. And so basically, at our event, we pitched the idea, I know back then, charge $12,000 or $12,000, you can have your name on our film, which we had just shown. We had just premiered at the event. You just watched it 5 minutes earlier, so had that emotional connection to it. Budget, 2 minutes went up right away, and I think if we kept pushing it, probably could have got a couple more, but we didn't want to oversell because obviously on the credits, we didn't want to have a ton of executive producers, so they had decided for me we would do 2. But I think he probably does a little 5 or 6 or any more than I know. Pushed him, but it was just up to movie making executive producers invest money for the financial return at the end. But with nonprofits and donors, the idea was they'll invest money for the emotional recur. And that's, why will people support nonprofits? Then I obviously try to get money back there if you had emotional return for their efforts. So, it worked out really well.
Yeah, and just want to touch on real quick, maybe Jill, you can chime in on this too. Just real quickly, I have a relationship with you guys. Noah's got a relationship, Brody's got a relationship with your respective clients. How does an independent filmmaker pitch a nonprofit a film, right? How would you want to be approached if someone wanted to do something?
Yes, I think it depends on the type of film that's being made. One that's emotional like this, one that really deep, especially, for Jill, you gotta have a relationship, right? And so I think you're interested in getting into nonprofit work and want to do something easy to this extent, you're gonna have to break down some barriers first, and that's getting in and doing some basic work for nonprofit, and then building up trust, and then pitching something a little bit more intense like this. Do you really need that? I mean, there's a ton of different nonprofits over the world. There's a lot that have been around for a long time. Once you have that legacy, you lose. Not to knock any other long-standing nonprofit, but the connection to why it started for those who are working there. Obviously, the further it gets away from the person who started in, now you have people who are there for the mission, but they're there. If it's a career, it's a job for them. It's not a personal, it's not an extension of their personal life like it is for, someone like Jill who started the nonprofit. And so when you're a young nonprofit like we are, and we still have the founder involved at every day, the cause is part of their lives. And so I think you need to approach that a lot differently when they're a small nonprofit. The founders so evolved that you would to a legacy nonprofit where, it's more of a staff that's not buying it. And so, so it's just, it's just building that trust with.
You have to care. You have to care about what you're doing. You have to love. I love what I do. And so the people that were working with me loved what I did as well. And it really showed. Again, Caitlin was incredible. Every single person on this panel that worked on this movie for me treated it as if it was their own. And I think that's very important. I think it's extremely important you build the property behind you in doing something like this, because it could have gone terribly differently for me had I not had the support behind me that I did have.
Thanks, guys. So let's switch gears to the production side of things now too. So now that we have a few bucks to and a little seed funding, and we had Caitlin on board, starting to storyboard with us, it was time to bring in Noah. So Noah's our director of photography, and he really worked on some really creative shots that very ambitious shots, I should say, that we're going to touch on. But before that, we needed a crew, right? And we didn't have the money to pay him. So Noah, can you talk about how you got Dan, Nick, Megan, Connor, the rest to come on board and the resources and all that?
So that's kind of the fun part of nonprofits is you can stretch the dollars a lot further than you can on commercial sets. The same way you pitch the nonprofit to potential donors or out in the world, you can also pitch to creatives and to other people to be on your film because they want to be a part of something that matters. And us as filmmakers, we're kind of always hunting for the opportunities to make sure that have a world, that we're actually producing things that are touching people's lives and making a big effect. And you can use that to bring together a crew very cheaply if they engage in the film itself, if they engage in the cause, if they engage in the nonprofit itself. So we pulled a ragtag team together on a shoestring budget and put everyone to work.
I counted on you the day we shot. I counted 19 individuals touched this film, from people that volunteered their time for hair and makeup, cast, crew, everybody that came on. And Jill, you fed them all.
Yeah, we did. We are extremely lucky. One of our board members does On the Doubt, which is a catering company. So he came in and saved us for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, there's a great sponsor plug right there. I'm sure On the Go will appreciate it. As filmmakers and nonprofits, we have these big, bold ideas, and one of them I tasked Noah with was there's a scene in the movie. Can we go to the next slide too as well? Yeah. So there's a scene in the movie where Jack's now finally home from the hospital, and he can't be the individual he used to be. He can't go out and play lacrosse because he has shunt in his head now, and he's searching for something to do. What's next? And I was like, we need to see him through his eyes. We need a POV shot. And this is ultimately what leads to him discovering the piano. He's running around the house and he slides into the family piano and he hears the sound off. And it needed to be a POV shot. And that involved through the mask, down the stairs, through the house, and up into the piano. And I said, we had to film. We were recording dialogue at a local recording studio from 107. And so I tasked Noah. I said, hey, I'm gonna leave you on set. You guys do it. And we can show this. This is the clip that came of it.
Although it's not going to be obvious right away.
That's good. We can pause it there. So our young star was not in the mask when we shot that, obviously. So Noah, can you walk us through how you shot that?
Yeah, and that's there's a recurring theme on the film of like, okay, here's a on the day problem that we need to solve and figure out. Because we had a few other ideas before that, but what is it like to be a kid that's bored running around the house with a superhero mask on? So we came up with some simple rigging and we the mask to a couple different rigs and tried to figure it out. And then we, spent quite a while trying to get the movement of a kid running around the house down, which is significantly harder with a big camera than you might think. But it's one of these things where a whole bunch of people came together to just solve a problem quickly and effectively. And we had to keep doing that over and over again because this is a group of people who aren't necessarily getting paid. We don't have a huge budget, and we definitely don't have any time to waste experimenting on stuff. So we get to a point where we made a decision that looks good. We're going to do this style, and we pushed forward, and then we had that shot. And turned out good for how quickly we got it.
Turned out exceptionally. Great job. And I wanted now another important thing that's usually overlooked that it should not, is sound. How important sound is in film. Music too as well. So, I actually tasked Jack with writing the score. We had to have a score. Jack's learning piano, obviously had to happen. And I usually run to a few scores when I'm thinking of like different scenes in my head. And Jurassic Park is one that comes to me frequently. I found a version of it with like these cannon fire drums going off and horns, which are indicative of like Marvel films. I sent it to Jill, and Jack put it together with Chris Gazelle. And then I'm flying back from LA to shoot in Mass, and I called Brody and I said, "Hey, we need good sound, man. We need to not only record voiceover dialogue for animation, but we also need to record on set a soundtrack." Brody, walk us through. Let's fuck through the first initial call and what you thought when I said that all to you.
I was really excited. I mean, I love music. Music, so when he told me we were doing this project, I was like, sign me up, I think donating my time to a cause that could potentially help other people who are suffering, help the families, I think that's great. And music is really powerful for stuff like that. So I was all for it. And on the day of the shooting, it's just me. I just have my gear. So we went to Fun 107, which is a local radio station, and we did some recordings there for the voiceover part, for the animation. And then we moved to Jill's house. And so I had to make the best of what we had there. So it's not a recording studio. It's not professionally treated. You had to make it as professional as possible with whatever we had. So I converted one of Jill's closets into my recording booth. I brought in my gear, I put down my interface, set up the microphone, and in between when we were doing shots in the house, I would have Beaker come down and we would record their lines. It was really important to get clear sound, so part of that is listening to the environment. There's a few times where I'm listening, we're in the middle of a take, and I hear the toilet flushing, so you gotta be redundant and make sure you have enough, because I'm not gonna have another chance to record these people. So we made it happen, and there was one part where one of the voice actors wasn't present that day, so he was actually in LA. So Alex had a different microphone, and he recorded him. And my goal is to make everyone sound the same texture in the film, because especially when there's not music behind everything and it's animated, you're gonna notice the sound more than anything. Sure, you're watching animation, but really what brings film together is visuals and sound. So it was really important that we dialed that in. So we had a selected microphone that has a similar characteristic, similar principle of design to achieve that. And that worked out great. And it's really about being creative and making the best of what you got.
So just quickly, we touched on a lot of really interesting ways to go about it, but if you had to, on a shoestring budget, get some gear together, what's in the bag?
So I would definitely start with a pretty basic audio interface, 2 channels, something like that. Then I would put most of the budget towards a microphone. I would probably recommend a large diaphragm condenser, These are really high detail microphones. And the theory here is that because it's a large diaphragm, get more spectral content out of it. It's more fuller, it sounds bigger. And I worked with that bigger sound and kind of moved backwards. So, if your voice is a little boomy, I got people right up on the light, and then I moved backwards from there so that, especially between male voices and female voices, I want to get a well-rounded texture. So I would recommend something like a Neumann U87 or a clone, or a really popular podcast mic is the Shure SM7, SM7B as well. I would definitely bring a sound shield. With this is just like some foam to go around the microphone. So when you're in a space that isn't acoustically treated, you can get a nice, clean, dry sound. You don't hear wall reflections. You don't hear any noise that's undesired for what you're trying to get. I would also recommend gaffer tape, mic cables, and especially for the film part, we had a boom mic, and I gotta say, it's a lot harder to hold like the I'm getting really tired.
Thanks, Brody. So up here on let's put together a slide for you. I recommend taking a picture of that. That's our initial marketing idea. We are a small nonprofit, and we have big grand ideas. You're not going to be able to accomplish every one of them. It can, great. We accomplished a lot of this, but I think there's some really interesting ones that we weren't able to explore just for the time being. But a lot of great learnings. Few revenue streams over there on the side. You definitely take a look at audience growth opportunities, and so on and so forth. Can we go to the next slide? And just for just for reference, like, who else is doing this, huh? I mean, so we got Damnation, which is a Patagonia film. If you haven't heard of Subgenre by Brian Newman, I definitely recommend getting on that newsletter. He worked as a consultant on this film, and part of this was Patagonia sponsoring this documentary about just unused dams in the United States, and they actually had this full activation model where you could go into a store and fill out a petition, and they would send it to the Obama administration to close down these 4 unused dams. Quantum Quest, Dr. Harry Clore, some of you may have seen him in Quantum Quest around here. It's a feature-length film featuring a star-studded cast: Samuel L. Jackson. I think you've had, who else do you have in there? Chris Pine, so on and so forth. Anyway, they put together this whole space saga to get kids excited into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And they built a whole educational school curriculum around it. Can we go to the next one too as well? And a few other nonprofits that are doing these works and doing some really great, interesting films too as well. I want to call on Mora Media. Their new documentaries are out of LA at a Museum of Tolerance. They have 2 Academy Awards. So nonprofit filmmakers, you can still win an Academy Award, which is FYI. And you go on the next slide one more time. And then these are 3 resources that I highly recommend. The one in the end, the 15K in 3 days, for those who are on, that was the tri-screening model that Pete and I were talking about. I actually texted him in this video. I was like, this is what we should do for a screening. And you get together, basically you have your film and 2 other buddies' films, so you combined audiences for a screening. And that was the basis for that. It's a pretty solid model. So definitely take a picture of that. I know we have a few minutes left, so I just want to kind of touch on, ask Jill and Pete, what's next, and what's next in the Friends of Jack, and what advice do you want to get to nonprofits specifically exploring these collaborations? Like, what iterations did you bring in?
So I with our limited time, I want to kick it back, because one of the things we want to talk about was more of the grandiose plan that Alex had. That fortunately, this film came out, and it was, I'm so happy with it that we submit it to film festivals. Obviously, as many of you know, done that. You get a limit the release while it's being considered. And so we premiered this event last September, but we've held it for wider distribution until, so the CV kind of went through it. and we talked for Con as well. And so around Alice, but what your planning for us, because now it's really the one that has been driving it. As a small nonprofit with the people who who are entrepreneurs that we're trying to support our own mission. It takes someone like Alex to really drive the ship on a film like this, and we're there to support him. But where's the videos our day to day that he's really the one helping us kind of with whole marketing plan. So
Well, Keith, thank you. I would say, it was a great honor to work with you guys and support your mission, but also at the same point, get to make a superhero movie, right? And, as a filmmaker and a marketer, like honestly, getting to Comic-Con to premiere a superhero film is like as big as it gets, right? I mean, Comic-Con International. So like sitting up here doing this right now is, as a filmmaker, the coolest experience ever, right? As a nonprofit, all the news you press about premiering your film is as gratifying for me, because it shows that, guys, this works. It's not out of reach here. So I think a lot of us as filmmakers, we see a shoestring budget, we're like, hey, we can't get this big. Well, yeah, you can't. You got to be passionate, stick with your purpose, get a good group of people around you, and just freaking go. Be relentless. And that's how it is. And, Noah, Brody, I can't thank you enough for coming on and all the resources and time that you spent with it. And I want to throw it to you guys, like, as creatives, what are you taking away from this project?
Oh, the power of pitching people and being super transparent and super upfront with projects to the people around you. If there's a saying, if you don't know somebody in your circle that can connect you to the right person, they definitely do. So you just ask around, and you're super upfront with, like, this is the project, this is what we're trying to do, this is the next to nothing we can pay you for this is what we're looking to achieve. And I was genuinely surprised by how much traction, how quickly, and how much traction it got from creative professionals in the industry. So the thing I'm taking away is, go out with a mission and just be very candid with that mission, and some good things will come.
So for me, it's more of a challenge. This is my first project of this kind. I've worked on TV shows and music broadcasts, but it's mostly just a mixing position where that's it. I've never done post-production of this nature. I produce albums, I do live concerts. And so I think going forward, I really feel as though I learned a lot. 2 years ago, I was a college student, and now I'm working professionally. And I think there's a lot to chew on that I got from this experience, and I hope next time I can make it better, bigger, and do more.
I just wanted to add just quick fun facts for those who are considering coming back and watching the film tomorrow. One, kind of hit on it. So, and we hit on the film, obviously Jack's ability to hear music and play it. Alex talked a little bit about the score, which he just sent kind of the idea within 48 hours just by listening to the Jurassic Park theme that's sent over. Jack wrote basically into his head what you hear is the score for this movie. So it's the song, the score kind of encapsulates the superpower that we're talking about. I think is really cool. And that so one hit up just as far as like overcoming challenges, creativity. How do you go back in time to tell a story? Pieces in the story that are really important. How do you get into a hospital? A setting that is very sensitive, that is very difficult to get back to.
Remember the helicopter scene?
And that was really the idea of the animation. Animation full of a lot of storytelling holes for us. Cut us to places, virtually got us take places at the times that we, realistically wouldn't get it to. And so there's just a couple things that even if you get to see the movie tomorrow, just creatively, where curves up your key with talking in a cool way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I know we're up on time. We have posters for anybody that wants to ask questions. We're gonna do some quick photo ops because we're nerding out up here too as well. So, but afterwards, we'd love to stick around and answer any questions anyone has about working with nonprofits, about working as a filmmaker, and anything that you feel you have. And we got posters to give away.
Yeah, I would love for you to ask questions, posted, but we will have posted in the back. If anyone, we really appreciate you guys coming out and listening to this panel today. So if anyone
We probably have time for one question, if that's okay. Then folks been digging out to the halls. Do you want to continue that conversation?
Sure, absolutely.
Right. The film festivals, outside of festivals, where else do you show these films in order to? And your gay was obviously even a showing there, but what other events do you show them at to be able to get for your?
What we talk about? So I can see I think we have of our plan real quick. So honestly, yeah, we showed it at our gallo permit there our plan, which depending on timing and things, what we'd like to do, I'll put it that way, is we have a local find a local location. For us, there's a in 80s arcade that has a bunch of movie screens in it, show old movies. Having an event there where we would like you to come out for a small donation. We would make it, we would premiere film, at that location. But the reason why, it's not just going to a theater is it's a 15-minute film. If you're asking somebody to give up their night to come out, if you want to do more than just a film, so our idea will lead to couple it with like a pub crawl or, we'd be at this arcade bar where there's also drinks and food and the arcade to play. So make it will be part a larger event, and that's what we're going to do sometime.
There was two other ideas that I had that, whether we go with them or not. One was screened at Boston Children's. Remember that, Pete? We were talking about earlier on for the Child Life Specialist program. I mean, they directly support that, and geez, that's saved Jack's life. So screening at Boston Children's as a thank you would be another option too. Thank you.
Thank you, Brody.
We got